back to the dark side. I'm your host, Brianna.
And I'm Paige.
And this is Dark Adaptation. I'm your host, Brianna, because it's like second nature. But today, we are both the hosts.
We're co-hosts.
We are co-hosts of episode 64.
64.
Which is wild.
That is wild.
And the listener out there is probably like, wait, what? Co-hosts? What the heck's all that about?
What's going on?
You know what that means? You know what that means for you, listener? It means you get a collaboration episode.
A special episode.
A special episode. That's right. Paige and me, Brianna, have created a collaboration episode.
We're teaming up.
Which is so cool. And it's something that we have been talking about. And here we are.
Yep.
Fucking doing it.
Doing it right.
And yeah, I'm very excited. We both have so much information
that we both don't know about either.
That is the best part. It's like, yeah, it's a collaboration, but we have our designated areas that we were like, okay, you stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane, and then we will just do an episode.
Yeah.
So like, you're obviously sticking to your spooky, cryptid, folklore side and much more, I'm sure. And then I'm sticking to like dark history, true crime, with a dash of a haunted place, you know?
Sprinkle.
Really fun, and we both have so much to talk about. So should we just like dive right into this thing?
Sure, let's dive right in. Do you want to kind of announce what we're doing?
So, Paige,
Brianna,
do you want to dive in and kick off this episode by telling us a little bit about the Bridgewater Triangle?
I would love to.
You can tell us what that is and where it is and all that stuff.
I can definitely tell you that, yeah. So it is located in southeastern Massachusetts. It's also known as like the Massachusetts Paranormal Vortex. And we briefly touched on it in the first episode about puckwudgies.
Hell yeah, we did.
And so this is like a 200 square miles, roughly, like within the towns of Rehoboth. Rehoboth.
That's what I would say.
Freetown and Abington. And this area covers Hockomock Swamp Wildlife Management Area and like the Freetown Fall River State Forest as well. And Hockomock is Native Algonquin word for the devil or evil spirit.
Okay, well, that just sets the tone, doesn't it?
It does.
Freaking spooky.
Why else would we be talking about it though, right?
Yeah, that's true. We talk about it because, like you said, you already briefly touched on it. And we had our friend Steven over at Spoils of Horror fucking like an eon ago. He's probably like, did I even recommend Bridgewater Triangle? And I'm like, yes, you did, Steven. That was a long time ago, but here we are. Bridgewater Triangle. Gotta talk about spooky evil stuff. Dyson, what was that?
I haven't lived in Boston in 35 years.
You're a freak. All right. Anyway, Paige, you want to keep going?
Sure. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. I'm going to be talking about reports of puckwudgies, which I'm not going to touch on too much just because you can check out the whole episode about that.
Heck yeah. What was that? 25, I think?
Yep. Lucky number 25.
Episode 25, puckwudgies.
But I'm also going to be talking about some giant snakes, the red-eyed dogs, ghosts and poltergeist activity, weird balls of light, Bigfoot, UFOs, and it's known for a site of cult activity and rituals, which could include animal sacrifices and ritualistic murders.
So you saw the list of anything spooky to talk about, and you were like, check.
Exactly.
Here we go, Bridgewater Triangle.
Exactly.
Okay, and then now I've got some true crime, some dark history, and some haunted place, and that's what you get from me.
That's all you're getting. Sneak peek of nothing.
It's gonna be a fucking long ass episode, but it's gonna be good.
It's going to be good. So settle in, guys.
Yeah, everybody get like a nice little drink. I don't know, cozy up to something that you love, like a cat
Or a dog.
or a dog or a good blanket. It's July, but that's fine. Maybe you have central air.
Maybe you're a lizard person. You cuddle that dragon.
We don't judge.
We don't
Are you a
judge here.
lizard person? Cool. Nice to have you.
So we're gonna talk about like his little bit of history to it. And so according to Lauren Coleman, author of Mysterious America, there was, quote, an expedition of Massachusetts, and archaeologists discovered an 8,000-year-old Indian burial site on Grassy Island in the Hockomock Swamp. And when the graves were opened, the red ochre within the tombs allegedly bubbled and dissolved mysteriously, and every photograph taken of the site failed to develop, end quote.
Oh, that is super spooky. Also, how rude of you to open all those graves.
Right? Just leave them where they
Oh
are.
my God.
Leave the
Why is
dead
that
be.
such a like hallmark of something very paranormal and creepy? It's always like some people are pumped. They have their phone, camera, whatever, and then always malfunctions in some way. And you're like, God damn it, one step ahead of me again, ghoul.
Well, it's a sign. It's a sign to just leave it the fuck alone.
You experienced it. You're lucky enough. There you go.
There
or
you go.
unlucky enough, I guess, depending how you look at it. But I would be like, this fuck is sick.
Picture. Just try it anyways,
Trying
right?
from the hip, just like with me, I would totally have my flash on like an idiot.
I can outsmart the ghost. I can just hold it at my hip. And so just to kind of touch on like Pukwudgies, in Raynham, the bottom left corner of the triangle, which will show you a picture on Instagram of the triangle that we're talking about. There is an old Raynham Taunton Greyhound track, which has been closed since 2009. But in my first episode, I mentioned a man named Bill Russo who encountered a Pukwudgie. And Bill encountered it while walking his German Shepherd, Samantha, in the area.
Right.
And when he saw it, he thought it was a child in a Halloween costume. And going back to a quote from an article written by Susanna Sudborough in the Taunton Gazette during the Pukwudgie episode, he thought it to be, quote, 3 feet tall, maybe 4 feet tall, kind of like a stuffed animal, think teddy bear, 100 pounds or so, with a pot belly. Eyes a little too big for his head, and then it was motioning to me, beckoning me over with its paw or arm or whatever, end quote.
Or whatever.
Or whatever.
Like that thing sticking out of its pot belly. I'm having so many flashbacks to that Pukwudgie episode where I was just on cloud 9, like, oh, I love these little guys.
Right? little pot belly.
Episode 25, make sure you listen.
Yeah, take a listen. But according to an article written by Susanna Sudborough during her time at the Enterprise, the creature uttered Iwa Chukir to Russo before it disappeared. And Russo believes it was trying to say, we want you, come here. End quote.
I could picture it. Little
Come
creepy
here.
ass stuffed animal, just like, I want you here.
You want you here, come here.
I want you here. They're like, what? Ewok what? Star Wars?
Danny Daddy, what do you want? And so I also mentioned that there was a giant snake.
You did mention that.
And in 1939, CCC workers were on a project site in the King Philip Street area near the edge of Hockomock Swamp, under our upper middle part of the triangle, and reported, quote, seeing a huge snake as large around and black as a stovepipe.
Ugh.
The snake coiled for a moment, raised its spade-like head, and disappeared into the swamp, end quote.
No fucking thank you.
And from this is where the local legend that the snake or other large snakes appear once every, 7 years or so.
Oh god, ew, gross. Like they're just burrowing underground or something and emerge to scare the shit out of people.
Mm-hmm.
Ew, that's foul.
I know, it's so creepy. I would never go in there.
No, already, if you're, going for a walk and you see, I guess, quote-unquote, normal snake. Like, just, a small-ish snake, you're already like, "Bleh. No, thank you.
I'm peaceful. Please don't strike.
I didn't even see you, okay? I'm gonna keep going.
Yep, you're not even there.
Mm-mm.
And also so for red-eyed dogs,
Well.
in 1976, a report came out of Abington, which is at the very top of the triangle, of a dog who attacked 2 ponies. Quote, local firefighter Philip Kane, the owner of the ponies, saw the dog standing over the bloody carcasses gnawing at their necks. He said that the dog eluded extensive police searches and for a period of several weeks terrorized the community, end quote.
That dog is a menace.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody get a dog catcher out here.
Get someone out here cleaning up these streets.
And all of the mess that this dog has made.
Mm-hmm. Imagine you go out there and you see 2 of your horses gone.
Yeah, that's wild. Do we know how big this dog was? Like, to take down ponies? Jesus.
It'd probably be like wolf size or bigger, I would assume.
I guess it doesn't matter if you have red eyes, you're demonic, and you can do whatever you
You
want.
take down whatever prey you want.
Like, are you kidding? You talking about size right now? I literally have red eyes.
Yeah. And then in the days following, children were kept inside for their recess, and many of the local residents armed themselves with thousands reported sightings of this elusive black dog.
That's wild. This isn't even like a one-off little urban legend thing. Like, literally people were locking down
The whole town.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And that there was many reports about seeing this thing all over the place.
Ew.
And Officer Frank Curran was possibly the last to see or report a sighting of this black dog along the railroad tracks. He claims to have fired a shot from his gun, but missed. And according to his recount, the black dog turned away and slowly walked off in the opposite direction.
It was just like, oh, I see the message. Goodbye.
You know what it reminds me of? What you hear? A skinwalker.
Oh, ew!
Right?
My mind is blown. You're right.
Right?
It was like, okay.
There was the 8,000-year-old Indian burial ground. We know that there was the Wampanoag tribe that lived there.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say that they didn't have a witch?
Yeah. Especially if it was more of a wolf-esque
Mm-hmm.
rather than just a straight-up dog.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's really creepy. Oh my god. Maybe we've solved it. It was a skinwalker.
Right?
So now you're hearing it here first. It's not just red-eyed dogs in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
There's likely literal skinwalkers.
Exactly.
So again, check.
Check. Add skinwalker to the list.
Likely a skinwalker and check.
Yeah, and the fact that it could just turn back into a human if it was a skinwalker, right? And then it disappears, and that's how it evades police.
Exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, what else could you want?
That is insane. I wonder if there's other cases of skinwalkers having bright red eyes.
Well, when we were talking about it, there was a part where they were at the ranch and the girls said that they saw those red eyes.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it sounds like red eyes are potentially a theme.
Of evil.
Of the evil, and even a theme potentially within the Bridgewater Triangle.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Because I have a tale about the ghost of a hitchhiker that haunts Route 44.
Ooh, spooky.
This ghost, he's tall. He's a muscular man. He's got red hair and a big red beard. And he's wearing a flannel shirt, dirty jeans, and work boots. And some people have even seen him with glowing red eyes.
Hot.
Hot.
Hot. You sold him.
I know, right? And glowing red eyes. So, if you could get past that, hot.
Smoking hot.
Route 44 is a rural roadway.
Rural.
I cannot ever say that. Every time we do a fucking episode that has rural, I fuck it up. Rural roadway.
There you go.
That runs from Plymouth, Massachusetts to Kerhonkson in New York. So that is almost a 240-mile stretch of road. So it's a long-ass highway.
Mm-hmm.
But the part of Route 44 that has countless reports of this hot hitchhiker is the stretch of road through Rehoboth and Seekonk, which is in the bottom left corner of the triangle, more towards Rhode Island.
Okay.
So as you travel through this area of Route 44, Some people report seeing the ginger man on the side of the road as they drive by.
I like the twang.
Ginger man. Some people claim to have seen him keeping pace with their vehicles as they're driving.
Oh my god, that's terrifying.
Right? So like flying down Route 44 and you're like, there's a ginger man just straight up
Okay.
keeping pace.
Is he like running, keeping pace, or is he floating, keeping pace?
We gotta get some first-hand accounts here. What
Does
was
he
it
just
like?
kind of float off to the side as hang on to your car? Like what?
Yeah, is he white knuckling it for dear life?
Uh,
Is he just strolling along? He looks like he's strolling because you can't see his feet, which are just going a mile a minute trying to keep up.
like the agent from the Matrix as he's just
Yeah.
fucking running.
So, I mean, maybe it's all of them.
Maybe.
Maybe it depends on his mood. Some, let me see here. Where was I? Some people think that when they see him, just like on the side of the highway, that he's in distress because it looks like, I mean, he does look a little bit disheveled. He's got like a lot of hair, big, huge beard, dirty jeans. And they're like, this guy's in distress. We should stop and pick him up.
Mm-hmm.
So they do. But then he vanishes right when like he goes to like reach for the door. He's just
Rude.
gone. And he is out of sight, nowhere to be seen. But the people in their car that are like, what the fuck, where'd this guy go? They can just hear this like ominous, disembodied laughter.
That's so creepy.
And they're like, goodbye.
I honestly wouldn't even stop to begin with, so.
Same. Me neither. But some people are a little bit more naive or maybe nicer. I'm not sure which one.
Brave.
Brave. All three. Some people have just been like driving along Route 44 and they look in their rearview mirror and they see this man just sitting in the back seat. And before they can like totally register, like, what the fuck? Like, there's someone in my car.
Yeah.
He vanishes and then he is heard laughing maniacally or screaming through the car radio.
Oh my god. Through the car radio?
And at like max volume, like blowing your speakers out, screaming or laughing maniacally.
Oh my god.
Imagine how jarring that would be because you would already be
Yeah.
startled because you looked in the rear view and you're like, what the fuck?
And that's like a worst nightmare situation, like movie situation where
Yes.
someone is creeping in the back seat and then
Mhm.
they either stab you through the seat or strangulate you
Getcha.
from the seat.
I got real hyped there. I punched my microphone. Put like a little rope around your seat. And
A
just
bag
choke
over
you
your
out.
head. And
Anything.
Anything.
And instead he's like, peace out, but I'm going to scream as loud as I can through your radio.
And he probably does it loud enough that he blasts your speakers and ruins
yeah.
them. And now you got to replace them. That's just rude.
Yeah, this guy's a menace.
Asshole.
He's like a red-eyed dog menace. Maybe is it a skinwalker. Maybe skinwalkers, for some reason, have decided they're going to take on a disheveled ginger. You're like, no, I don't
Their
think so.
favorite skin to wear. He was a hitchhiker.
They're
from
like, I've heard
Scotland.
people think this is hot.
So
So after or during encounters with this hitchhiker, unexplained paranormal phenomena occur, such as electronic devices malfunctioning, like your GPS or your phone that's connected to the car, whatever, or your car battery can just die unexpectedly.
stop fucking with my shit.
Oh, he only knows to bring it to a fucking
A 10.
level
He's always at a
11.
10.
He's like, I'll surpass that. I'm an 11 at all times.
Well, that maniacal laughter definitely puts that at 11.
Yeah, that's really creepy. I don't know if you ever watched like old Batman cartoons.
No.
There's this one, and the Joker like has like laughing gas that is like toxic to people. So they'll like start laughing because it's laughing gas, but they're
Oh.
horrified because they can't stop. So they're like crying
I
because
think
they're scared,
I've
but they're laughing.
seen something. It's like you're bringing back a memory of something like that. Okay, yeah,
But like it's just so disturbing.
that is disturbing.
And that's what I think of with this guy maniacally laughing. So some people even report accidentally running this ghostly man over or driving right through him. So they obviously stop because they're like,
Yeah.
what the hell did I just run a person over? And they get out like panicked and there's nobody in sight. He's vanished.
I wonder if he like makes his body semi-solid so that you feel the bumps as you're driving over him.
He would because he seems to be a little bit of a menace.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be like,
As he's like maniacally laughing, like,
right. And then in the meantime, while they're like trying to inspect to see if they hit anybody, he's like, I'm also going to fuck up your car battery.
yeah, probably. And that's it's terrifying because you like stop because you want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And you get out, and then they fuck it with it, and it turns off, and you can't go anywhere, and now you're just stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Stuck in the middle of nowhere with a freak that's disembodied maniacal laughter is heard floating through the air. No, thank you.
No thanks.
So this man's identity is unknown. Many speculate that he was hit by a car or involved in some type of fatal car accident, and it would have been in this area of Route 44, and now he like haunts this part of the road, and he's just trapped there. But I recommend, and I'm sure you will agree, do not pick up this man's.
No.
If you're driving down Route 44 and you think you see like a disheveled-ish ginger man's.
Ladies, people, he may be hot.
Yeah.
Do not pick him up.
Hot.
Hot.
But no. You'd be like, oh, that was kind of nice to look at. Anyway.
Keep driving.
Don't stop, because you're obviously only going to get fucking stressed out. Because he's like, I'm going to mess with your radio. I'm going to mess with your car battery. I'm going to scream as loud as I can and then laugh and then make you pull over and not even get in your car. And then maybe you'll even run me over. But it won't matter because I'm a ghost.
Yeah.
All those things.
All those things.
Don't even get in the car with him.
Such an asshole.
But hot.
But hot.
All right, so while I'm on the topic of ghostly specters, I'll just go straight into this next haunted place. It's the Hornbein School, and this is a historic one-room schoolhouse located at 144 Hornbein Road in Rehoboth, and which sits on the edge of the bottom of the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this school was built in 1862. It's a single-story wood frame structure with clapboard siding, a brick chimney at the rear, and the side walls have 4 windows that are irregularly placed.
So they're not like even
No.
across.
It's just like a window here, a window there.
My
everywhere,
OCD
window.
would go crazy.
I thought that was funny. That was like worth noting in this article. It was like, and those windows are fucking irregularly placed. Fuck those windows.
Because that person, it doesn't stand for that.
They're probably there trying to
no.
like photograph it, line it all up on their camera because you get the grid lines, and they're like, this isn't working.
These goddamn windows.
Fucking windows are irregularly placed.
Who would do such a thing?
Another menace from 1862. Massachusetts, full of menaces.
What's up with your windows, man?
Stupid windows. So the school, it was closed in 1937, and then it was converted into a private residence. Didn't last very long. It was abandoned, and then it was eventually just left to like fall into disrepair.
Yeah, because it's probably haunted.
It's haunted, and it's like just small and random, and the windows are irregularly placed, and who the hell wants that?
No, that's why the ghosts are there, because of these goddamn windows. They can't get over it either.
Apparently someone did want this, though. And that someone is the Hornbein School Association, because they're a nonprofit, and they snatched up that school. They were like, this cannot sit in disrepair anymore. I'm taking it. It's 1968. I'm going to list this as a National Register of Historical Places. It's not
Trying to save it. Give them some credit.
listed on the National Register, not of. And that was in 1983. They're like, this is a historic piece of Massachusetts. This is one of the only like one-room schoolhouses left standing that's actually salvageable. We're going to take it back. And they did. And now it operates as a local history museum.
Oh, nice.
The little people that work there, they'll be wearing like 19th century clothing, and kids will come for a day and they'll have like the whole experience of fucking old school schoolhouse.
That's cool. Good learning experience for the kiddies.
Oh, yeah. Now, this place is only open, like, shit, there's a sign that says, it's like the 2nd and 4th Sunday of the month or something like that. So it's not open all the time. It's only open very seldom.
Okay.
So that means for the most part, it's just sitting there, locked up, and just
Collecting ghosts.
collecting ghosts and just being a little ghoul haven. And residents who live near the school on Hornbein Road, they have reported hearing voices emanating from inside the building.
Oh.
Even when it's locked up and closed down, they'll hear just a little chatter coming. people who've looked through the windows when it's closed have seen the apparitions of a teacher and students that are dressed in 19th century clothing inside, and they're just hanging out like class is still in session.
Wow. That's crazy.
And then sometimes when people look through and they see that this little class is happening, they'll see that the students have just all turned and are staring at them.
Oh no. Oh,
Isn't that so creepy?
nightmare fuel.
Everyone just silently staring back at you. And you're like,
Jesus.
fuck, I think I interrupted something.
I was just like, just kill me now. Because I can't handle this.
It's nightmarish.
It is nightmare.
The spirits of children can be seen and heard playing outside the schoolhouse, like they're on their recess or something. They're just like hanging around in the grass.
Makes sense.
And then people will even hear the ringing of a bell, like a school teacher is like hitting a bell and saying that class is back in session.
Oh, to call them back in. Oh my God.
And a lot of these hauntings sound a lot more like they are like residual hauntings rather than just like an active present poltergeist or something like that. It's more of like a
Interesting.
residual haunting, because these people, everyone who's witnessed something happening at this school, is saying that they're kind of just going about their day-to-day activity that they would have during whatever time, late 19th century, early 20th century, whatever. And they are just like repeating the same routine over and over again. So it's like this little energy imprint
Yeah.
in time instead of a like really intelligent haunting. It's just like a memory over and over again.
Yeah, like the impression of their essence has just been left there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's Hornbein School.
Hornbein School. So we're going to kind of go and talk about the Assonet Ledge. And many have claimed to have seen several spirits moving between the trees and believe them to be part of the indigenous tribe that fought against the Puritans in the 17th century. And so this ledge is very, very high, and it drops down into what is believed to be 71 feet of water.
Oh.
And this is also a known location where people have sudden thoughts of suicide or growing feelings that they are about to be pushed over the ledge off into the bioreserve.
The Call of the Void.
The Call of the Void, exactly.
Oh, so creepy.
Yeah, so some know of a story that follows a young girl who would meet her secret lover on the ledge. And when he stopped showing, she tragically took her life by jumping off the cliff, and some say her spirit is seen lingering on the top of the cliff, still waiting to this day.
Oh, so sad.
So
Girl,
sad.
move on. You deserve better. He left you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, move on. You could do so much better.
Yeah.
And a man by the name of Matt Moniz claimed to have seen the lady, and according to an article written by Nelda Hoxie on Wisley titled Hauntings on the Assonet Ledge in Freetown State Forest, quote, when Matt Moniz was younger, he and his friends decided to hang out on top of Assonet Ledge. There is only one way out and back. Moniz was the first, and he saw this woman out in front of him. She looked real and solid, not a shadow or some faint spirit. He turned around to tell his friends that they weren't alone. When he turned back, she was gone. He was so concerned that he looked over the ledge to see if she had fallen, end quote.
Oh, God.
And no splash was heard.
That's true. Oh.
Yeah. And according to Andrew Lake, an expert on the Bridgewater Triangle, in his book Ghost Hunting Southern New England, he describes a time when he and Chris Balzano, who is considered one of the leading experts on Pukwudgies, and members of the New England Ghost Project went looking for paranormal activity in the area. As Chris and Andrew waited for the rest of their group to arrive at the base of Assonet Ledge, they learned that the other group had an encounter, specifically Maureen, a psychic who, quote, had sensed an evil presence stalking them through the woods.
Ugh.
When they activated their thermal imager and pointed it in the direction Maureen instructed them to, The imager screen showed a strange distortion hovering a few feet away. Maureen suddenly fell down and began to cry out as she rolled around in the ground. The team got on the ground with her and encouraged Maureen to fight whatever was attacking her. When they looked for the creepy distortion again with the thermal imager, they could not find it. As we were all about to call it a night, it happened again. Maureen Woods started to behave strangely. She threw her handbag and began growling with a twisted look on her face. She almost backed into the quarry pool. Ron and Christopher had to tackle Maureen and take her to the ground to stop her from going into the water. As they held her down, calling her back from whatever force was attacking her, Ron dislocated his fingers. While all this was happening, I, Andrew, was shooting video in infrared. As I watched the whole event unfold through the camera's view screen, I noticed a strange little light appear behind the group as they huddled around Maureen on the ground. The light lasted for 13 seconds before it disappeared.
Well,
End
it's
quote.
a long time.
It
13
is.
seconds if you're just watching, that's a long time. And I was really worried about that when you said the hovering figure you couldn't find it anymore. I was like, oh no. Don't tell me it went into Maureen. Oh, it sounds like a bad.
It does, especially with her having that call of the void.
Oh God.
To jump in.
Thank God those people were there to be like, no, like, stop out of it, Maureen.
Completely took her over.
That's fucking scary. Especially because, like, the girl that spirit is seen there doesn't really seem like she's malevolent in any way. She kind of just sounds to be trapped there waiting for her lover. So it's like, what the hell evil spirit is this?
Yeah, or if it is her or if it isn't her, it could be something else is there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to move on to the King Philip's Cave a little bit, where there have been a few reports of unexplained balls of light floating near the cave.
Classic.
Right. You saw them over there at Sonnet Ledge. You're seeing them over here at the cave.
It's a Bridgewater Triangle staple, guys. Come on.
Come
Floating
on.
lights, floating orbs. What else do you want?
Right. And some of them refer to them as phantom fires or spook lights.
I love Phantom Fire.
Phantom fires.
The name of my next band. Yeah, because I've had more than one. Phantom Fire.
Can't wait for the album.
It's called Spook Light.
It's called Spook Light by Phantom Fires.
Like, that's redundant.
Some also hear the accompaniment of drums from an unknown source, as well as full apparitions in this cave. And there's also a place called Profile Rock. It's about a mile north of Slab Ridge Road and is what used to be Profile Rock, as it's known as Old Man on Joshua's Mountain. But sadly, on June 19th, 2019, at around 9:30, a call came into Freetown Police and Fire Department with reports of damage to the cliff, as the park is currently closed with claims of it being unsafe.
Oh, wow.
So it was completely destroyed.
How or why?
I don't think anyone really knows. They just, all of a sudden, people probably went out for a hike and saw that it was destroyed. I think part of the nose
slide, maybe?
Yeah,
deteriorated?
Maybe. Yeah.
Or ghouls rebelled?
Mm-hmm. Or spirits, right?
Wow.
There is legend of Chief Massasoit of the Wampanoag tribes. Some claim to have seen his ghost sitting atop Profile Rock with his legs crossed and his arms outstretched. And Profile Rock looks like a man's profile with a broad forehead, a heavy brow, a steep nose, and defined lips and chin.
Mm-hmm. It's too bad that Profile Rock is, like, at this point, maybe gone.
Yeah.
Or, like, at least the profile part of it.
Yeah, I mean, the spirit of it is still there, but it's just completely in shambles if you see the pictures.
It's too sad.
It is very sad.
Too sad. Where is he going to perch now with his arms out? He's got to find a new perching point.
Maybe he can share Assonet Ledge with the Lady of the Lake.
Yeah, they're going to have to probably wrestle over that. Or whatever mystery thing is possessing people up there.
Maybe it'll be like a love story and he'll come up and then she can finally be released because...
They'll be an eternal love together.
We just turned the story around.
That's how I'm going to imagine it. This is all played out now. And I'm happy with that. And I'm going to ruin your world now because I'm about to tell you a true crime tale.
Ooh, please ruin it. I'm excited.
No one's ever been so excited to hear bad news. Please ruin it.
We're all here because we love to hear it. What are you talking about? You got a whole fan base that's waiting for this.
That's true. They're like, thank you. Let's do this true crime stuff. That's cool. Haunted places. That's nice. What about the true crime? Because Bridgewater Triangle has a few things going on that way. But I'll tell you about one tale in specific, all right?
I'm ready.
On September 8th, 1978, 15-year-old Mary Lou Arruda was riding her bike in her Raynham, Massachusetts neighborhood. And we've already talked about Raynham.
Mm-hmm.
And she's riding along and she sees her neighbor, a woman named Helena McCoy. A woman, a girl, I'm not sure. It's a neighbor. And her name's Helena. And so Helena's walking down the street. Mary Lou's riding her bike down the street. And Mary Lou rides up beside her so that they can just kind of have a little bit of chit chat, some small talk. They're both going in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
So why not?
Say hi to your neighbor.
Yeah. So Helena's interaction with Mary Lou was normal. It was pleasant. Mary Lou just seemed to be having the time of her life out there on her bike. And it was around 4 p.m. when they parted ways. While her interaction with Mary Lou was normal, something that Helena did notice was a little bit odd was that there was a car circling the area. It was a lime green 1976 Opel, and it had this black stripe down the side, so like what they call a racing stripe.
Classic.
And it's a lime green car, right? So it's going to stand out in your mind. You're going to be like,
everyone's going to notice that car.
yeah, it's like, okay, this car isn't usually in this neighborhood. It's kind of circling around. It's going to stay with you. And this car that had just kind of been driving around, circling the area, it was driving up and down the streets. It was just prowling. This
creepy.
Very quiet residential area. It's not like you're on like a downtown street where people are driving by all the time. Like, this is specifically a residential area.
And people are going to notice that car that stands out because they know all their neighbors.
Exactly. And good point, because a lot of people did notice this car. The man that was driving this car was a white male, and he had dark curly hair and dark rimmed glasses, and he was seemingly alone in the vehicle. Shortly after Helena noticed it creeping around, other witnesses reported seeing the same car with the same man driving it, speeding through the streets and leaving the area. This time, however, the witnesses reported something large, maybe a person, was in the passenger seat.
Okay. Interesting.
So at around 4:30 p.m., which would have been half an hour after Mary Lou was last seen by Helena chit-chatting, a neighborhood boy found Mary Lou's bike lying abandoned on the side of the road.
Oh, no.
And there was no sign of Mary Lou.
Of course not.
And it was totally weird for her to just leave her bike on the side of the road. While she's like pretty close to home, it's still strange. Like, it's not like a kid that leaves their bike. She's 15. Like, she wouldn't just abandon her bike there. So this neighborhood boy, he knew it was Mary Lou's bike. I'm not sure if it's because there was like her name on it or something, or I've read that it's a bright orange bike, so I think maybe it was very specific to Mary Lou.
Noticeable. Yeah,
so he had known that it was hers, and he kind of kept an eye on it to see if she would come and get it or something, because it is weird that it's just laying there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was around 5 p.m. at this point. And so it's been half an hour since he's noticed that the bike has just been sitting there, and it's still sitting there. So he went to Mary Lou's house to tell her that her bike was lying on the side of the road.
Yeah.
But Mary Lou isn't home, and it's her mom, Joanne, that answers the door. And so when the boy is like, yo, Mary Lou's bike is just lying on the side of the road, you should go and get it. Joanne panics. Because she's like, what the hell do you mean? Mary Lou's not with the bike? She's nowhere around?
Yeah.
Why is her bike just laying there? So her, like I'm saying, like, her daughter would not have just ditched the bike and just taken off. Like, that's so out of character for Mary Lou. So Joanne is freaked out. She immediately calls the police. And to their credit, they do show up very quickly. And they speak with Joanne. They take her statement about where her daughter was supposed to be, where she's going, how she's just vanished. They go out into the area where her bike was and kind of investigated it a bit. Spoke to a bunch of witnesses in the area. And they take a missing person report from Joanne. So this is how we know that a bunch of neighbors and people in this neighborhood had seen this car. It's 'cause
Yeah.
they're like, well, it's a very specific car. And we totally saw that thing either more in like the minutes preceding 4 p.m. People
Mhm.
had seen it prowling. And then after 4 p.m. is when witnesses said they saw a car speeding away.
Wow, yeah. And for it just to be abandoned like that on the side of the road, the bike,
Mhm.
like at 15, that's your like main mode of transportation for yourself.
Exactly. And it's the 70s too. So
Everyone's using bikes. So for it to just be on the side of the road, discarded, but at least this kid, like, he paid
I
attention.
know.
Like, he is a hero, this kid,
Exactly.
watching out for his neighbors.
It's like, little neighbor. I'm just picturing this small little neighborhood boy, like the patrol, like, abandoned bicycle.
They give him
Catalog that.
a community vest where it's like the community watch vest or
Yeah.
something.
That's so true. He was on the ball though.
He was.
And he's like, I know that's Mary's bike, and I also know where Mary Lou lives, and I'm going to her house to say, hey, your bike is there. You might want to get it. So, yeah, this kid's on the ball.
Mm-hmm. And that he actually did something about it too.
Exactly. It feels like so far people are on the ball. I mean, the neighbors are noticing a weird
Mhm.
car. This kid is noticing the bike. The police are actually showing up pretty quickly and
Tight
taking
community.
it seriously. For sure. Very tight knit. So, like I had said, the police had shown up and they were kind of investigating this area where the bike was left. So they are examining the scene, and the police find a couple of clues that confirm she was likely abducted and put inside of a vehicle. So next to where the bike was found, there was a tread mark, like a tire track that
Mhm.
was left on the road, like an acceleration mark, as if someone had sped away and like
Mhm.
spun the tires.
Yeah.
And the track characteristics suggested that the tire had an abnormal tread wear pattern. So it's like fingerprints or shoe prints, footprints.
Okay.
Like, it's very unique, and it's going to be just as beneficial if they take photos of that. So that's a really good clue to have. And then nearby in the middle of the road, officers had found a Benson and Hedges cigarette butt. So they're like, all right, our perp has at least one of their tires has a very unique tread pattern, and they smoke Benson and Hedges.
And the neighbors all saw this one
And
car
exactly.
that has now
lime
disappeared.
green Opel. I think you say Opel. It's not Opal. I think it's Opel. But it's lime green, okay? It's very specific. So for the next 3 days, police, locals, and canines searched the area where Mary Lou had been last seen. And they're looking for any more clues. They're hoping that they can find her, anything like that. On September 9th, so that's the day after she vanished, police developed photographs of the tire tracks found near the bike. And then on September 10th, they published a wanted poster containing a composite sketch of the driver and the green car. Because the eyewitnesses had seen this car, and they had all said, we saw this white guy, curly hair, dark-ribbed glasses.
Pedo.
For
Creep.
real. Prowler.
And you said he had curly dark hair.
Curly dark hair and thick dark-rimmed glasses.
Possibly a wig?
No, actually, this is legit 70s hair.
Oh my, yep. Well,
It's got some thick curls,
classic
you know.
pedo.
Oh shit, I just laughed so hard I broke my hair clip. Damn, son. Okay. Oh no, all my curly hair.
Oh no.
So, yeah. All these witnesses are actually so helpful because they're like, we know exactly what the car looked like. Let us tell you. You can draw it. We know exactly what this man looked like. We'll tell you. Let's draw it. And they do, and they release the sketch to the public. And someone who saw this sketch believed that they recognized the man. So on September 13th, the police received a photo and information on a man named James Cater.
Okay.
Kudos to whoever sent this information in.
Yes, thank you.
They're like, also, he's like probably a freak. So really happy to send you this information.
Yeah.
Now on September 19th, 1978, 32-year-old Cater, I'm just going to call him Cater, his attorney, and his 18-year-old wife
Oh God.
met with the police at the Raynham police station. So I know that like 18, you're an adult, whatever, but like when you're 18 and you're 32, what the fuck do you have in common? Like,
I it's just so dumbfounded, like, about how these people could try and justify that. And it's like, you go after like the quote unquote like innocence of a woman or a person.
Innocence for sure, because they're gonna be like, he's 32, he's so like well traveled and well versed and like experienced, and he's like, so cool.
Yeah.
And the 32-year-old guy's like, yeah, she's an 18, man, it's fucking sick.
I was gonna say something. I'm not gonna say it. Never mind. Okay. Moving on.
Oh my god. I just choked because I could see the wheels turning in your head, and you started to do a gesture where you were like, I'm gonna do it, and then you're like, no, I can't do it.
No. It's best I don't.
So, yeah, 32-year-old Cater, his attorney, and his 18-year-old wife, they go to the police station on September 19th. So that's like 11 days after Mary Lou has gone missing.
Okay, 11 days.
And the composite sketch and everything that had led to the tip and the photo and the information about James Cater came in at September 13th. So it's about like a week prior, but he wasn't brought in until this point because on September 9th, so the day after Mary Lou goes missing, he married his wife. So they're fiancés up until the day after Mary Lou went missing.
And now he's married his 18-year-old.
No, and it was on September 9th that he got married. And so he wasn't in town because they went on a 2-week honeymoon. So that's why it took him until September 19th to be brought in for questioning. I went to Canada too, and it didn't say where. It just said 2-week honeymoon in Canada.
Probably Niagara.
Yeah, you're so right.
Right? That's
of
where
course.
everyone kind of tours, is Niagara.
Especially on the East Coast.
Yeah.
You're so right. Let's just say it was Niagara Falls, and I hope it was fun for her and horrible for him.
We're changing history, guys.
Right? Yeah, it was Niagara Falls, totally. But like we don't know that, but it makes sense. Okay. So the police noted when the Cater came in that his appearance was incredibly consistent with the composite sketch. And it's the 70s, so you're just fucking hacking darts in that interrogation room. What do you think he was smoking?
What do I think he was smoking?
It was Benson and Hedges.
Oh, okay.
Same butt that was found in the middle of the street near those tire tracks.
Of course it was.
So Cater gave the police permission to search his car. A bright green 1976 Opel with a black racing stripe down the side.
He made it so easy.
For real. And kudos to whoever turned this guy.
Yeah.
So the right front tire tread had unusual characteristics. Just like the tire track found near Mary's bike.
Oh, wow. What a coincidence, eh?
Who even saw this coming?
Who would have known?
When they searched inside the car, they saw wedding gifts, 2 cartons of Benson and Hedges cigarettes, and 2 pairs of dark-rimmed glasses in the glove compartment. In the trunk, under some luggage, they found 2 newspapers from September 10th. One was the Boston Globe and the other was the Boston Herald, and each newspaper was open to articles about the disappearance of Mary Lou Aruda.
Wow.
Like, could this be any more fucking
I think that they're obviously very fucking stupid.
Right.
But at the same time, this would be a perfect fucking plant.
Like, that is so true. It's like 2 on the nose.
Right? Like with the sunglasses, it's easy enough to get a wig that matches his pedo hair, right? Like his whole vibe. He's probably wearing a friggin' tracksuit or something too.
Oh god. You're so right.
Like if you're driving a lime green bright car with a black stripe.
A racing stripe.
He's
got a Ferrari jacket.
Does he have a mustache too?
I'm trying to think of pictures of him, and I think he was clean shaven.
For that picture.
Yeah, like he could have shaved before he was taken in for questioning.
Trying to alter his appearance so they wouldn't recognize it?
Yeah, he's clean shaven. He's got butt chin.
Little double chin there.
He's got butt chin.
Butt chin.
You know, like a little crack in them. Mm-hmm. It's not cool like Superman because he's
double
not cool.
Chin.
It's kind of got a double chin, you know. It's a little saggy, but it happens to the best of us. It's a good point. Sounds a little bit too perfect. Could be a plant.
especially with the multiple pairs of glasses and like everything that's like magically in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's to say maybe, your friend took it for a spin, threw on a wig.
Why don't I keep telling you the story, and we'll see if you feel
Oh,
that way
I'm
still.
excited.
I think your mind might change.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Change it for me.
So, they're looking in this car and they're like, what the fuck? All this stuff is like right on the nose. And I mean, it is incredibly suspicious. So the police photographed Cater and the tires and they interrogated him. And they were mainly asking about his whereabouts between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. on September 8th, 1978, the day that Mary Lou was abducted, likely.
Mm-hmm.
So Cater said that he had picked up his clothes from the cleaners at 3:45 p.m. and dropped them off at home. And then around 4:15 p.m., he stopped at a local restaurant called Friendly's, where he regularly went, and he just got his usual sandwich and coffee. And then around 4:45 p.m., after he's done eating his sandwich and drinking his coffee, he went to a local store called Bradley's to purchase a gift for his wife. He then washed his car at a nearby gas station, paid a short visit to the donut shop where he worked at 6:15 p.m., and then he went home. So he's got a seemingly airtight, put-together alibi for where he was that day, even though that would have been like 2 weeks ago at this point. He's like, I know exactly where I was at what time.
And probably why his car is so freaking clean.
Yeah. And apparently he like went to the car wash that day multiple times, which is bizarre. Like, who does that?
And if you are, what are you hauling, hey? If you're the type of person that goes multiple times,
What the hell are you doing?
you got a bunch of like dirt and sand.
Yeah, it's not like it's
and
a big pickup truck and you're like a farmer or something, always out in the field. Like, you're in your lime green little show car. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Why
you're
are
not
you going
hauling
to the car
anything except
wash?
for bodies.
Presumptive, but correct. So, of course, police are like, cool, thanks for the alibi. We're obviously going to double check it. So they do. They're like, let's go to these places. Let's see if he was at Friendly's. Let's see if he was at Bradley's. Let's see if he went to the donut shop, all of that. And they learned that this alibi was off. He did not go to Friendly's that day. He, quote, couldn't have purchased anything at Bradley's before 6:40 that evening. End quote. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they saw receipt records, purchases, or if maybe Friendly's wasn't open until later. I have no idea. But the police were able to confirm that it was impossible that he went to the store at that time.
Fair.
And, quote, most likely paid a short visit to his workplace at approximately 7 p.m. instead of 6:15 p.m. So, later than he said.
Lies, all lies.
And even then, most likely, like, they can't positively confirm that he did go in there on that day. Because if he did, in that moment, if it was September 8th, you'd be like, oh, like, I don't know, he's just here, whatever, he works here, maybe he stopped in. But like a couple of weeks later, you're not going to really remember if he was in for a visit or not, because you'd be like, I don't know, it wasn't even important at the time. Cataloging every time an employee comes in.
Yeah, especially on their days off. Like, plus he could set like a precedent for how he shows up all the time on those days, so it's not out of the blue if he does.
Yeah, so true. So Cater also missed a 5:30 p.m. appointment on the day that Mary Lou had gone missing. And he was witnessed by witnesses. That's terrible writing. He was witnessed by witnesses driving his green Opel at 4 p.m. in Mary Lou's neighborhood. And then by more witnesses around 4:30 p.m. in the immediate vicinity of Freetown State Forest, which is important.
Yeah.
It's also important to know that Cater was not a good guy.
Oh no, really?
This is alarming and shocking. Wow.
Oh.
On February 6th, 1969, Cater pled guilty to indictments of assault with intent to rape, assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon, and kidnapping after abducting and attacking a 13-year-old girl named Jacqueline.
So another girl.
Mm-hmm.
He has a history.
Mm-hmm. So on June 22nd, 1968, between 1:30 and 2:30 p.m., Jacqueline was walking her bike home on a quiet street in North Andover when she noticed that a small, unfamiliar light blue car had stopped in front of her. It was the same car that had passed by her several times earlier that afternoon.
Stalking her.
So different car, but exact same thing. creeping, prowling this neighborhood, following this girl on a bike.
Girls on bikes, obviously, as targets.
Yeah, apparently that really does it for this freak. So she looks and she sees that it's the car that she's certain was already following her all day. And then she sees that the driver's side door is open, but the engine is still running. Then she sees that Cater is standing in the middle of the street, just staring at her.
That's so creepy.
I know. So they kind of had that moment of like, what the fuck? And then Cater walks towards her, quietly, but very politely, asks her for directions. He's looking for like a nearby house or something. So as Jacqueline turns and points in the direction that he should go, takes her eyes off of him for a second, he quickly grabs her by covering her mouth and her nose with his hand. As Jacqueline is struggling to get away, she drops her bike and she sees that Cater is holding an iron bar in his hand.
Oh, wow.
He quickly forced her into the car, putting her on the floor underneath the passenger side dashboard, got in his driver's seat, put the car in reverse, back down the street, and turned around at an intersection. And he was out of there, sped off through those neighborhood streets.
So fast. It happened so fast.
Very fast. So driving incredibly fast, speeding down the roads, they traveled for about 30 minutes, and the last few minutes of which they were driving in a forested area. Cater finally stopped the car, pulled Jacqueline out, and walked her further into the woods. He hit her on the back of the head with the iron bar while forcing her to kneel at a stream. And as Cater tried to force her face into the water, she fought back. She grabbed his glasses from his face in the process and she threw them off to the side. And as he's going to retrieve his glasses, she tries to flee. But he caught up to her and he grabbed her and he forced her back into the car. So again, he drove them deeper into the forest, parked, walked Jacqueline out of the car and further into the woods. But this time he forced her to stand against a tree instead of kneeling at a stream. So as she is standing against a tree, he uses strips of torn bed sheet and he ties Jacqueline's hands, ankles, and torso around the tree.
Okay.
So she is basically attached to this tree.
Immobile.
Yep. So after roughly 20 minutes of just pacing back and forth and watching her, Cater went behind Jacqueline, pulled the last strip of bedsheet very tight against her neck before moving in front of her to strangle her with his hands. And he does this until she's unconscious.
Wow.
Now, she wakes up. I don't know if he thought she was dead, but she does wake up. And she's alone. She's slumped over. And she's still bound to the tree. But miraculously, she managed to untie herself. And she ran out of that forest until she found help.
Good for her.
So after she was found, she was taken home. And then I assume her parents took her to the hospital. She did go. And then she was taken to the police department, where she gives this whole story about what happened to her.
Detailed statement of it.
And then Jacqueline identified Cater as her attacker and abductor. And as we know, he pled guilty to these charges against him. And he had spent nearly a decade in prison for this crime.
Good.
But, I mean, he's now in police custody being questioned about Mary Lou's disappearance. So, some good it did him.
Yeah, on to the next one, eh?
Yeah, so at the point that he's interviewed by police as a person of interest in Mary Lou's disappearance, he'd been out of prison since January 1976. So just a little bit more than 2.5 years.
Okay.
And he talks about how he's like been rebuilding his life. You know, he's married now. He's a better man, all of that. So he might have done those horrible things to Jacqueline, but he would never do that again to anybody else. He's learned his lesson. He's a new man. While he was released from his interrogation, he was never far from the investigator's mind, because on November 11th, 1978, a little over 2 months after Mary Lou had vanished, her body was found. And when she was found, she was severely decomposed, fully clothed, and she was tied to a tree in Freetown State Forest.
Oh, wow.
Sound familiar?
Yep. A pattern.
Her cause of death was strangulation by ligature, or positional asphyxia. So a pathologist later testified that Mary Lou was tied to the tree while she was alive and in a standing position. But once she became unconscious, the weight of her head against the ligature around her neck caused her to suffocate.
Okay.
So the pathologist also believed that Mary Lou died the same day that she disappeared. But that means that she was out there for over 2 months, just tied to a tree.
Well, if she was found severely decomposed, then he
Yeah.
probably brought her quite deep.
And I'm pretty sure she was found by, like, little kids that were, like, out there having fun and dirt biking or something.
Oh my God, imagine seeing that.
Horrifying. So, yeah, when it says strangulation by ligature or positional asphyxia, I think positional asphyxia is just, like, standing against the tree, having her head down, suffocated on the ligatures that were around her neck. On November 28th, 1978, 32-year-old Cater was indicted for the kidnapping and murder of Mary Lou Aruda. The reasons were basically that his alibi for the day that Mary Lou vanished wasn't reliable because they had looked into it and they were like, buddy, this doesn't add up.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
And then there was the unusual tire mark at the scene, which matched the unusual tread wear of his tire. They were like, okay, that's also undeniable.
Clue number 2.
And then there's the Benson and Hedges cigarettes.
Clue number 3.
Very circumstantial, but still. The newspapers in his trunk. The fact that the crimes against Mary Lou were strikingly similar to the crimes he committed against Jacqueline.
Exactly the same.
Pretty much, yeah. And then the fact that his car was seen near Freetown State Forest and around the area of where Mary Lou had lived and was taken from.
Well, no one could miss that.
Mm-mm. And then this part is so sad and, like, eerie. One of the witnesses that saw the green car fly down the street was Joanne, which is Mary Lou's mother.
Really?
And because it was flying down the street and at the time that she saw the car, it was likely that Mary Lou was inside the car.
Oh my God, and probably...
So Mary Lou was being driven past her own house.
Oh, wow.
And I was reading that and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That's so cruel.
That is a big, like, fuck you to that family.
Mm-hmm. Horrible.
Especially since he's been stalking her for how long?
Just
Like,
prowling the streets, looking at her.
mhm.
Like, it sounds like a good portion of that afternoon of him just creeping around.
Waiting for his opportunity.
So at trial, Cater denied having any responsibility in the disappearance and death of Mary Lou Aruda. Something he's always maintained. He's always been like, nope, I didn't do it. In 1979, Cater was convicted of the abduction and murder of Mary Lou Aruda. Over the years, there's been many appeals, overturned verdicts, retrials, mistrials, convictions of guilt again, and then more appeals. A mess, and I will not get into all of that.
Long and dragged out.
Completely. But finally, in 1996, Cater was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for good. So
Finally.
it's like, even though you were originally sentenced in 1979 and it's now 1996, it's done. You're going to prison. No parole. You're guilty.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he appealed because that's what he does. But the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court upheld the conviction in 2000. And that was it. Stuck in there.
Good.
You're in prison. And then on January 23rd, 2016, he died of cancer. So he's done.
Hope the cancer was painful.
I hope so too. Everyone else, especially from Raynham, Massachusetts, they're just like, fuck that guy. I hope he rots in hell.
For sure. He terrorized this town.
And he did. Like, this Mary Lou's case has, to this day, is still very present in the minds of people in Raynham. Like, they don't forget. And her family, especially with all of the appeals and the retrials and all of that, like, that means they were dragged through all of this for decades.
Yeah.
So that must have been so hard.
But the fact that this community was strong enough to come together and be like, no, we care about the kids that are going missing. We care about making sure that it's safe here. And if anyone has seen anything, we're going to say something.
Yeah, that's so important.
Because they got to get that information out there.
Yeah, that's very special. And you just hope any community that you're a part of or that you live in is like that.
Exactly.
So, of course, Mary Lou's family, they love her and they miss her very dearly. And Mary had a sister and a brother and loving parents. She was and still is loved and remembered by the people of Raynham. There is actually a soccer field named after her. There's a street named after her, a police plaque, and there's even a fingerprinting program named after her.
Oh, wow.
So this town holds her very close. And
holds the tragedy very close and wants to really honor the sacrifice that happened there.
And then even though it's been almost 45 years, people still say Mary Lou's name. They remember her story and the lovely girl that she was. Like, she was a cheerleader and she was like one of the best members of the track team. Like, this girl had potential and was loved. And to this day, locals and visitors of Raynham leave flowers at Mary Lou's grave.
Oh, wow. That's so sweet of them.
So that is a little true crime tale for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, just rest in peace, Mary Lou. People don't forget you.
Yeah, the whole community seems like they care.
Yeah, there's no denying what Cater did there. 2 cases of women in the Freetown State Forest, bound to a tree. You're guilty.
Exactly. Well, we're also going to take a little bit of a turn, and we're going to talk about some Bigfoot encounters.
Are we going to talk about Bigfoot encounters?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
It's going to be weird. I feel like Bigfoot is like a classic one. We've never talked about Bigfoot.
No, we haven't. And I'll probably dive in deeper on another episode. But for now, we're just going to talk about the sightings that happened in Bridgewater Triangle.
Let's do it.
So, sightings were first reported in the 1970s when the armed police, along with a pack of dogs, tracked down what witnesses claimed to be a bear, but they were unable to locate it. And in April of 1970, more reports came into police about a creature that was very large and walking upright, covered in hair.
It was me. Sorry.
I thought it looked familiar in the pictures.
That smell smells about right.
Well, apparently Bigfoots too stink like rotten garbage.
Really?
Yeah,
like
some
the
of them
pigeon
do.
that attacked me.
Like, oh my god, the friggin' pigeon.
I was attacked by a pigeon, guys, and it smelled like sour garbage. It was horrible.
And then Kobe came to the rescue.
Yeah, my cat saved me. It was amazing. Anyway, this is about Bigfoot.
Yes. So at this time, a flood of reports had come in from residents and farmers about finding mutilated farm animals. And some people reported seeing this creature running and causing mischief in the backyards and neighboring woods.
What is with the mischief? Everything in the Bridgewater Triangle is a menacing, mischievous mister.
Well, the paranormal vortex maybe is just amping them up.
You're right.
Right?
Just letting loose out here. They're wild and out here in Massachusetts.
Wild and causing a ruckus.
Ruckus and Raynham. I'm sorry. I'm
Well, police determined to capture this alleged creature. An officer posted up in his patrol car when suddenly the entire rear end of the car lifted into the air. And he claims that when he, quote, spun the car around and when he flashed his searchlight, he saw something that looked like a huge bipedal bear running away between the houses, end quote.
I just don't even know what to make of that. My mind went into like 8 different directions.
I know, like the whole back end of the car.
I was like, first I was like, wouldn't you know if it was a bear or not? Like, you'd be like, my eyes are playing tricks on me. That has to be a bear. And then my mind also went to like those moms whose kid is like hit by a car and they all of a sudden get like superhero strength and could pick the car up and save their kid. And then I was like, that's irrelevant. This is Bigfoot. But that's just some places my mind went.
Well, and the fact that the car was like picked up and not like rammed into, so there was no damage reported of the car.
And you would know if we're being lifted up versus being catapulted forward.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
you would know the difference.
He could still drive his car.
I've been rear-ended really hard, and, like, it's obvious that you were just hit from behind.
Yeah.
Never been in a vehicle. Sorry, that's not it. I've been rear-ended real hard.
Ooh.
That's a story for a different podcast. But I've never been in a car that's lifted up, but I feel like you would know the difference.
I think you would know the difference. And a few days later, there was a report of tracks being found after seeing a 7-foot tall creature run into the woods.
Absolutely not.
In Raynham, during 1973 to 1974, an overnight security guard at the Raynham dog track reported, quote, a series of horrible screams and screeches that frightened him and upset the dogs. Huge footprints, 15 to 18 inches long, were discovered in the snow south of Raynham, end quote.
If my dogs are scared, then I'm terrified.
Yeah, you trust the animals around you.
Yeah, if the animals around you are freaking out, something terrible is around. And it smells like garbage and has 18-inch feet.
Just get out of there.
Fucking run. Take those doggos and go and have a cuddle party somewhere else.
Exactly. Get matching PJs, get all snuggly.
Hell yeah.
Safe inside. And there were also like many more reported sightings of this 7-foot tall creature around Elm Street and Bridge Street in Raynham.
Elm Street, get real.
Yep, creepy Elm Street.
As if.
Yep,
That's
on many
horrifying.
separate occasions. And in 1977, in Agawam, near Springfield, footprints were found in the snow, with police believing it to be the hoax. And in July 13th, 1979, residents of Bridgewater Triangle hear a sound they attribute to the vocalization of Bigfoot, just screeching and screaming,
I hate
roaring.
The sounds are always the creepiest. It's one thing to, like, see a footprint, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, that's creepy.
You can pretend it didn't happen.
You're like, I don't know, it could be a hoax, could be whatever. But when you hear a sound that is, like, bone chilling and you cannot attribute it to anything you know,
Yep.
that is a nightmare.
Like when that chill just goes right up your spine
Yeah.
and your hair just stands on end.
Yeah. You're like,
Like-
that's either a Bigfoot or a banshee is coming to get me.
You know that if you encounter that, you will die.
I would think so.
Right? I'm sure there's some people out there that would be like, I can take it. Let's go.
Let's go. Fucking go. You want to shriek at me? I'll get you right back.
Let's fucking go.
That wasn't even a Boston accent. I don't even know what kind of accent that
It was
was.
just a dude.
It was just a dude.
Just a dude.
That was just a dude.
So in July 2009, a report came in from a motorist in the Freetown area in which Bigfoot had been sighted at night.
Oh no, the Freetown area again.
Yep.
I mean, there's a big forest there. It's the perfect place for him.
Yeah, exactly. So a few reports within the Bridgewater Triangle, but you know, we'll get into Bigfoot on another episode.
Yeah, that would be really cool to just dive right into Bigfoot as a whole, you know? Get to know him and his big feet. And his smelly ass.
Maybe Sasquatch, his cousin, or the cousin Yeti.
Wait, a Sasquatch and a Bigfoot aren't the same thing?
No. And then there's also the swamp ape as well. But we got to get into it in another episode.
I have so many questions.
I know. I'm going to leave you hanging there. I'm not going to give you any more information.
So what am I supposed to do now? Just change the topic?
Just, change the topic and wait for a new episode on what the differences are.
Okay, fine. My story isn't as cool as a Bigfoot or a swamp ape or a fucking Sasquatch, which I all thought was all the same thing. Actually, I've never even heard the term swamp ape till now.
Florida.
But that's just a hairy man.
A hairy wet man coming out of the swamp.
Like, a swamp amp. And a swamp amp?
A swamp ape.
Jesus.
Swamp ape.
Okay, this is a sign for me to drop the topic. I'm going to switch it up.
Okay.
I've told you some haunted places. I've told you a true crime tale. Now I'm going to tell you a little dark history tale. So I'm going to tell you about the Taunton State Hospital,
Ooh.
formerly known as the State Lunatic Hospital at Taunton.
I'm excited.
So this was the second, quote, insane asylum in Massachusetts. It was built in 1853 to relieve the state lunatic hospital at Worcester, which had been built 20 years earlier, but was already overcrowded, like severely overcrowded.
Oh, I'm sure.
So they were like, okay, let's build another one, and that is Taunton State. So there was this beautiful 154-acre lot, basically, along the Mill River in Taunton. And Taunton is like basically like the center of the Bridgewater Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And this area along the river was selected in part because the river acted as a natural barrier, separating the asylum from further growth of the town. So even though institutions like this, the like insane asylums, were sort of symbolizing this turn in how people felt and thought about the mentally ill, they still wanted it to be like isolated from the town. So they're like, yeah, let's have institutions to care for these people, but like make sure it's like away from us.
Put the crazy people behind the trees where no one can see them.
And protected by the river. There would eventually be more than 40 buildings that are a part of the lunatic hospital.
Wow, 40, eh?
Yeah, like anything you can think of. A theater, bakery, like it was its own little town, basically.
Wow.
And the state lunatic hospital featured modern amenities. So even though it was built in 1853, there was still running water, sewage system. Like it was a pretty sweet place.
Sounds like a good retirement community.
Honestly. So prominent New England architect Elbridge Boyden designed the hospital, and it was the 5th state hospital to be built on the standardized asylum plan of Thomas Kirkbride's plan. And Thomas Kirkbride is somebody that we talked a lot about in our Haunted Places of West Virginia episode, which was episode 27. So I won't get too much into him. If you want to recap on that, make sure you listen to episode 27. But basically, when you're talking about a standardized asylum plan, that just means that you believe in this building that has like, quote, curative power. So the architecture is starting with like an administrative building, a main operating point, and then wings that like branch off.
Okay.
And the intention is to have like maximum amount of sunlight and fresh air in each ward. And that would be, quote, curative power.
Okay.
So that's the idea when it comes to Thomas Kirkbride's plan.
So sunlight cures.
Sunlight, fresh air, you know, all that. Get out there in nature.
At least they're not trying to hide them.
Right. Sort of.
Sort of,
like,
yeah.
Put them behind the river, but make sure they have sunlight.
Yeah.
So the administrative building at Taunton was 3 stories tall, and on top there was this dome that offered a gorgeous panoramic view of the neighboring villages and nature. And I mean, that's really beautiful and nice, but then the patients are just like, wow, look at all of this life that I'm banished from.
Yeah, wow.
So it's like pretty, but also the patients were probably like, wow, I want to be there. The first patient was admitted on April 7th, 1854, but the patient population quickly grew to 250 people in the first 8 weeks. And then by 1873, the number had doubled.
Wow, people just dropping off their family members.
Exactly. So to accommodate the overcrowding, expansion projects occurred throughout 1906 to enlarge the facility. And then another expansion project occurred in the 1930s. And so they were trying to like make it big and feasible and comfortable to hold all of these people that were there. And there was also various forms of entertainment available for the patients. The place had baseball games, picnics, book donation programs, lectures, dances. Like they were trying to make this at least as normal as possible.
A lot of activities for them to do and different things to keep them entertained. That's really good.
For sure, tons of stuff. And then journalists and other community members were even welcomed in to the hospital. And this was in an attempt to like do away with old time prejudices and views on the mentally ill. So they were trying.
That's
to, like,
good.
change the view of mentally ill people.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's very nice, very thoughtful. But despite these like good intentions of, curative power and allowing journalists in and whatever, the asylum isn't a place that most people want to go.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to go to an asylum. And especially because we know nowadays that causes for commitment were usually arbitrary.
Yeah.
So here is a long list of arbitrary reasons. Promiscuity, being deemed wild or unruly, being an unwanted child and or senior, being outspoken or unorthodox in one's religious or political views, anxiety, depression, not getting along with your family, homosexuality, being a woman who was viewed as too assertive, hyperactivity, birth defects, Alzheimer's, syphilis, not speaking English, poor social skills, being isolative, introverted or antisocial, masturbation, and loss of friends and loss of interest in housework.
Wow, that is quite the list.
And that's like, if that's the list, then I would have been admitted over and over and over again.
That is ridiculous that all of those reasons were reasons that you could get just thrown in there and dropped off, never to be seen again.
Exactly. It's just like basically, you're a problem or an inconvenience to me, and goodbye. So like, all of those are arbitrary reasons.
Yeah, well, no wonder that there's not a lot of reports of a lot of kids being sick or born with defects or whatever, because they just dropped them all off in the psych ward.
They were just like, ugh.
Don't want to deal with them, so you don't see them in society.
Is this thing going to be a burden or like maybe a small handful?
It's not perfect. Get rid of it.
Drop it off at the lunatic asylum.
Oh my gosh.
Now, while those reasons are arbitrary, of course, there are patients who are admitted to the hospital for good reasons. There's some people in the Taunton Lunatic Asylum that should probably be there.
Yeah.
For example, 23-year-old Walter H. Prey was committed to the asylum for the murder of a boy named Vernon Fisher. An article in the Fall River Daily News from November 22nd, 1889 reads, quote, Walter H. Prey of Weymouth, the demented youth who murdered the little Fisher boy yesterday by burying him alive, was in court at Quincy this morning and was held for the grand jury. Prey does not appear to realize the gravity of the offense. End quote.
He buried him alive?
He buried a boy alive.
Oh my god, that would have been terrifying. Like, to go through something like that, like, knowing you're going to die, like, oh my gosh.
It gets worse.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Fall River Daily News reported again on December 6th, 1889, stating Prey was indicted for murdering 3-year-old Fisher. So this boy wasn't even just a boy, he was 3.
3 years old, wow.
And this article said, quote, Prey dug a hole in the ground and placing the child in the excavation, covered it over with earth, smothering him to death.
Wow. Evil person.
23-year-old murders a 3-year-old boy. A baby.
A baby.
A 3-year-old is a baby. And then the People's Press wrote an article on February 27th, 1890, titled Peculiar Freak of an Insane Man. That was so much for me to say. But that's because that's a very extra title. It's like, okay, calm down.
We got there.
It says, quote, there was a lunacy inquiry Tuesday before Judge Devens in the Supreme Court in the case of William Walter. Why did I write William?
Is it William or is it Walter?
In the case of Walter H. Prey. Witnesses of the medical profession testified that Prey was deficient in intelligence and cerebral development. The prisoner had told several doctors he killed the child because he liked to go to funerals, and because the victim's elder brother had tormented him. Judge Devens ordered Prey taken to the Taunton Lunatic Hospital. End quote.
Wow.
So this crazed man was like, well, this kid's older brother was kind of a dick, and I just like to go to funerals, so I literally killed a 3-year-old boy for that.
What kind of fetish is having to go to a funeral?
Right!
Oh my.
He's like, I love funerals, so I killed the boy.
Well, be glad that he's not the, mortician?
Oh, God, yeah.
Imagine the fucked up shit you would do then.
I don't even want to know. Technician or mortician or autopsy technician, none of that shit. I don't want to know.
Well, there's a reason why that morticians are usually women.
You really?
Yeah, it's an actual fact.
Oh god, that's monstrous.
Men are
No,
monstrous.
I know, but the fact that it's like, oh, we gotta make sure that we got a woman in here because can't trust.
'Cause she can actually, control herself and doesn't have fucked up fetishes.
Oh god, that's so gross. I was just listening to a podcast and I can't remember what it was, but it was about a man that worked as some sort of custodian or janitor or something in a hospital, and he violated like hundreds of dead bodies in the morgue. God. I think it was an episode of Dark Topic, maybe, but I don't remember.
That's crazy.
Oh, it'll come to me. But yeah, so this guy just liked to kill kids so he'd go to funerals. And there was another, quote, lunatic sentenced to the asylum.
Okay.
And the Daily Item wrote an article on June 6th, 1908. Quote, Anthony Santo, a lad of 14, startled Chief of Police Fred S. Sackett of Norwood at the close of the session of the Northern Norfolk District Court today, when he declared that he killed his two cousins, James and Frank Marino, in Brooklyn, New York, last March. He said he buried the body of Frank in the woods. He murdered the two boys, he said, by hitting them on the head with stones. Young Santo told the chief of police that he lived at present with a cousin, Anthony Santo, at Cottage Street, East Boston. He said he had been in Boston about a month and had been employed as a water boy on the Norwood sewer. There have been several bicycle thefts about Norwood recently, and Santo was brought into court today for examination in connection with the thefts. The session of court had been closed, and the chief and several newspaper men were talking with the lad in the courtroom when he suddenly said that he had wanted to tell them something. He said that he took his cousins for a long walk through the woods, and when they were not looking, he struck both of them over the head with large stones. He was unable to remember what became of the body of James Marino. Santo cannot fix the exact date of the alleged crime, but says it was about March 1st. The boy was immediately locked up to await investigation. Chief of Police Sackett communicated at once with the Brooklyn police. Santo's father was brought to the police station and questioned regarding the boy's confession. The father says that he knows of a family named Marino who lives in Brooklyn, but does not know whether they have children. Chief Sackett talked with the Brooklyn police over the telephone, and a thorough investigation is being made.
Wow.
So a 14-year-old boy is like, I murdered my two cousins. And everyone is like, what the fuck?
Did he actually do it? Like, what?
Do this or not? And his dad is like, man, I think I know some Marinos, but I don't know if they have kids. So this kid's in custody, and the police are like trying to figure out, is this kid well or no? Is he a liar? Is he a murderer? What the fuck is going on?
Well, it seems like he's claiming that he's also murdered cousins, but no one can figure out which cousins he's talking about.
Yeah, he's like, do these cousins even exist?
Yeah.
Does it seem like they do?
So did he just murder just two random boys and called them cousins? Or...
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So Anthony's being held in custody, basically, because they're like, we got to talk to Brooklyn and see if there's two kids that are dead. While he's in custody, he admits the next day to murdering a third person.
Wow.
A girl named Louise Stalla. The Boston Globe on June 7th, 1908, reported in an article, quote, Chief Sackett started back to Norwood with the boy, and it was while he was waiting in Memorial Square for a Norwood Electric that the first mention was made of the Stalla murder, while the Globe representative was questioning him in regard to his Brooklyn murders. Suddenly, in the midst of a story of the killing of the Marino boys, he said, Yes, I saw a little girl and I threw stones at her too. She was picking flowers. "No, I did not hurt her." This statement he stuck to until he was in the Norwood lockup. There he was questioned at length and told his story of the triple murder in detail. "One Monday, I was walking toward the Boston line. I saw a little girl on the hill near the railroad track picking flowers. I went to where she was. There were some trees and some tall grass there. She was dressed in blue and had blue flowers in her hand. I had one of my spells and threw stones at her. The first one did not hit her because she jumped. The second hit her and she fell. I thought she was dead, and I started away, but returned and saw she was not dead, as her head moved and her eyes rolled. I stayed there a while, and then went out onto the railroad track and walked back to Norwood."
I love the voice. It dragged me in.
At the conclusion of his story, Chief Sackett took the boy to Dedham and had a talk with Chief of Police William H. Drugan of Dedham and State Officer John H. Scott. "The boy has been taken to the scene of the crime to see what he would say or do. He pointed out several places where he said the girl fell, but he would not say much more about the case. He was again questioned at the police headquarters and then taken to Dedham lockup, where he is held to await further examination by the police."
I love that voice too. Oh my god, getting so into character.
I'm already reading a quote, so I'm like, this is a quote within a quote. Let's just do it.
Why not?
So yeah, they're like, okay, this kid has confessed to murdering 2 cousins, question mark. And now he's saying he killed this girl, which is extra confusing to them because Louise Sala was murdered.
Okay.
Like, that's true. Absolutely, her body was found. They have no idea what happened there. But this kid is also claiming that. So now they're even further in this rabbit hole because they're like, well, I mean, has been murdered.
Mm-hmm.
So did he do it? And if he did do it, then maybe there is these 2 kids back in Brooklyn that he did murder.
Yeah, that
So
are missing.
They're keeping him in custody and they're really trying to like sort out what is real and what isn't.
Good, they're doing their jobs.
Yeah, they are. So the Boston Evening Transcript wrote in an article on June 8th, 1908, titled, "Anthony Santo, sent to asylum, boy who confessed to murder of Stala girl found to be feeble-minded."
Feeble-minded for killing people.
Quote, "Anthony Santo, the 13-year-old boy," this one says 13. He's been also reported as 14. "But the 13-year-old boy who confessed to the murders of 4 children, including Louise Sala of Dedham, and who also said he assassinated President McKinley, was today committed to the Taunton Insane Asylum. He was examined by Dr. John W. Pratt and Dr. Andrew H. Hodgson, who found that he is feeble-minded and afflicted by delusions. For 5 hours on Sunday, the boy underwent an examination by the town and state officers, and the only conclusion that could be reached was that he was a degenerate who was willing to confess anything through weak-minded bravado. The police satisfied themselves that all his takes... What did I write here? The police satisfied themselves that all his takes of his own wickedness are of his own imagining." I don't know what I wrote there. I must have been going through it.
We're rolling with it.
Basically, tales. It's supposed to say tales. All his tales are of his own wickedness.
There we go.
And are of his own imagining.
Autocorrect.
His parents say that his mind has been afflicted since he had scarlet fever 7 years ago. End quote.
That's what she's blaming it on. Okay.
Yeah. So he's interrogated, examined, all of that by countless doctors, and they're just like, I'm sorry, this kid's fucking crazy.
Yeah, especially if they can't find any witnesses or evidence of the 2 quote-unquote cousins
And
that
then
have gone.
And then there was another girl he said he murdered. I believe her name was Grace or something.
Okay.
So he's just out of his mind.
Just trying to take credit for things.
Yeah. So he was 13 or 14, young man, but he was sentenced to the Taunton Insane Asylum, and it's believed that he was there until he died.
I'm sure like a lot of patients were.
Exactly. It's easier to be like, oh, I don't know, put them away and
Tuck them away where no one can see them.
So the last, quote, famous patient of Taunton State Hospital is arguably the most well-known. It is a woman named Jane Toppin.
Okay.
St. Louis Post-Dispatch reported on November 10th, 1901, quote, Miss Toppin is a trained nurse and for more than a decade has come and gone in Cape Cod homes in times of sickness. She is a middle-aged woman, stout and jolly, with a genial smile and a friendly manner that made friends for her on every side. But of late, it has been told that wherever she went, sudden and unexpected death went also. Suspicion was aroused, and when in the brief space of 6 weeks, an entire family, whom she attended, all died suddenly and mysteriously, the shadow of suspicion deepened into the black charge of murder, under which Miss Toppin now rests. For 2 months, she has been followed and shadowed by detectives, and as a result of their investigation, she was arrested and brought to jail. She has since been indicted by the grand jury on 1 count. End quote.
Wow.
So, yeah, she's just this, like, nice, big, jolly old nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of snowballed because people were like, wait a minute. A lot of people dying.
Yeah, what's happening
A
here?
lot of people dying under Jane's care.
Yeah.
So when it says at the end of the article that she was indicted on 1 count, this 1 count was 1 count of murder for a woman named Mary E. Gibbs.
Mary E. Gibbs.
And
Okay.
Jane was arrested and held in jail for this murder, where while she was there, she maintained her innocence the whole time. She's like, I did not do this.
Mm-hmm.
And her lawyer didn't necessarily maintain Jane's innocence, but instead said that she was not guilty by reason of insanity.
Okay.
And he would be like, I'll make my case very clear when we go to trial, and I'll prove as much that she's basically just insane. And meanwhile, Jane is just like, no, I just didn't do it.
Yeah. Just be
But-
my goddamn lawyer
Yeah.
and just say that I didn't do it and that I'm not going to plead guilty and I'm not going to plead not guilty.
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
She's like, I just straight up didn't do it.
Exactly.
The Boston Evening Transcript reported on November 5th, 1901, in an article titled Insanity in Jane Toppin's Family. Quote, the theory that Jane Toppin, guilty or not guilty of wholesome poisoning, not sure, I don't know what I wrote there, poisoning,
Okay.
is mentally unbalanced is gaining ground. It is stated in support of this idea that her family was mentally weak and that her sister, Nellie Kelly, is at present hopelessly insane in the Medfield Asylum. Jane Toppin's 2 attempts at suicide are also adduced in support of this theory. Another sister of the accused is said to be living in the West, and a third kept a store on Shawmut Avenue until recently when she removed to New York. Counsel for the prisoner, James S. Murphy, says he expects to prove his client's innocence and will make the government show its hand at the preliminary hearing. A new bit of evidence is indicated by the story that Mrs. Bola Jacobs of Somerville, who was in the Catamet cottage during Mrs. Gibbs' illness, says the patient became unconscious shortly after the administration of a dose of supposed medicine by Miss Toppin.
Wow.
The Fort Wayne News reported on June 24th, 1902, Jane Toppin is not guilty. Quote, Miss Jane Toppin was found not guilty yesterday afternoon on the charge of poisoning Mrs. Mary E. Gibbs, for whom she acted as a nurse. She was freed of the charge because of her insanity, and by order of the court, she was committed to the Taunton Insane Asylum for the rest of her life.
So they just completely ignored her and just went with whatever the lawyer said. And...
Whatever the lawyer said, and there was also a bunch of people who were like, yeah, every time she left, these people were sick.
Wow.
And then the fact that there was literally a whole family that was under her care and they all died.
Yeah, so obviously something was going on, whether it was purposefully or she was just a shitty nurse.
Yeah, exactly. The defense called this is still the article. The defense called no witnesses except the alienists, who declared the defendant insane. The verdict was reached after 35 witnesses had been examined. Miss Toppin was tried on the specific charge of murdering Mrs. Gibbs at Calumet, but she is accused of having killed 14 persons.
14 total. Wow.
Yeah, so this article says 14 people. And as time has passed, because this was like from the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay.
As time's passed, it's been said that she killed at least 31 people. And this would have all been with morphine and strychnine. And then in some cases, people argue that it's actually closer to 70 people that she killed.
70 people. Well,
because she was a nurse for so long and was sometimes taking out like whole families.
And who's going to believe the insane versus a nurse who is taking care of them and then lies and says, oh, they were acting this way. Oh, they hurt themselves. Oh, I couldn't stop them.
Yeah, exactly. And what was this here? Oh, yeah. So closer to 70 people. I mean, who knows? It could just be like expanded over time because of the lore and whatever. But regardless, people are like, absolutely, she did it. And there's more people. So Jane Toppin remained at the Taunton State Hospital until she died in 1936 at the age of 81. So she was there for a long time.
Yeah.
And speaking of 1936, by this year, the optimistic facade of the hospital started to just completely collapse. Especially after Massachusetts Governor James Curley had gone for a visit, and he denounced the unsanitary conditions, the overcrowding and neglect. And he said, quote, "Some wards I visited were horrible places to put animals in, let alone human beings."
Wow, it was that bad.
It was that overcrowded and ill-managed and all of that.
Well, that's what happens with those places because they make it seem like it's such a good thing for people to put their family members in, and then they just don't upkeep anything, don't take care of them.
Get overcrowded because everyone is like, what an easy solution.
The residents are being abused by the staff and manipulated, gaslighted.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people aren't supposed to be there too, so they're made to seem like they're crazy or they have all these mental issues, and you're like, no, I just have anxiety because, you know, my family's fucked up.
Yeah, whatever the case is. And they're like, and especially because it is around like the turn of the 18th century, 19th century, and it's so much easier for doctors to handle a physical ailment. It's like, no, you're like, you literally have gangrene, like we have to cut your leg off. But if you're like trying to cure a mental illness that you don't even understand, a lot of the times people are not handled properly.
Not believed, not taken seriously, or given wrong diagnoses where you're like, that's not at all what I described, and this isn't helping in any way. And they're like, I don't care. Well, I'm supposed to...
I'm the doctor. I know better.
Treat you for what I think is right. And if it's not working for you, that's on you. That's not on me.
So after the turn of the 20th century, overcrowding, poor living conditions, all of that at most state hospitals was just the norm. They were all in disrepair, basically. Physical ailments and diseases were treatable for the most part, like I said. But when you had a family member who was struggling with mental illness, it was easier to just house them in a state hospital and forget about them, which is so scary because they're not getting the proper care that they need. And treating mental illnesses were usually a pretty scary process. And it would include treatment like insulin shock treatment, which is where an epileptic fit and subsequent coma were induced by a massive dose of insulin.
Oh, wow.
They also would practice hydrotherapy, where a patient was restrained in a tub filled with really, really hot or really cold water, and they would be strapped in there for hours.
Oh, my God.
And sometimes even days, especially because a lot of these hospitals were understaffed.
Yeah.
Electroconvulsive shock therapy was used all the time. And then, of course, there was lobotomies.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that those were huge during that time.
And all of these, quote, treatments just worsened the conditions of most people. So as time's going on, you're getting further into the 20th century, there was a lot of drug-based treatments that were becoming more common, so you could medicate people who were quote unquote insane. So this led to a lot of people being discharged more often, which did reduce the population at state hospitals, but the conditions at these hospitals were still so terrible because they hadn't been maintained.
Yeah.
And the treatments were not up to par. Like, you can't just keep giving people lobotomies and shock therapy. So a lot of the state hospitals began closing down. Plus, there was like outside pressures from all kinds of people and governors and JFK and stuff. But
Community members.
I won't get into all of that. But they did start closing down. And sadly, a lot of them started closing down very irresponsibly and like suddenly.
And just probably dumping the residents.
Yeah. So in Taunton's case, staff and doctors resigned very hastily in 1975, and their reasons were, quote, hospital care has been deteriorating for 2 or 3 years, and some parts of the hospital have already reached the snake pit stage.
Snake pit stage?
Yeah.
As in snakes in a pit.
Yeah.
In this place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They were like, we are
poor
so
residents.
overcrowded. These wards, these rooms,
That's crazy.
everything is basically just a cesspool of people, and we're done. So because these doctors and personnel were just like, I'm out, then the hospital had to shut down.
Yeah, who's gonna run it?
Exactly. So the main hospital building was closed that same year. It was just done. And the Kirkbride building, which is like that main hospital building, it's the administrative building. It's the one that has like those curative wings and stuff.
Mm.
That was abandoned. So was the West Infirmary. And then, despite being added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1994, these buildings were just left to deteriorate with little effort made to maintain them. And then in 1999, the dome collapsed under its own weight. So you can see like aerial shots of like these beautiful buildings, like, because they were beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just like this collapsed hole in them. And then after that point, there was like this large fence that was put up because they were trying to stop trespassers and all of that. On March 19th, 2006, a fire destroyed a huge portion of what was left of the Kirkbride building. The rubble was cleared out by bulldozers, and the entire Kirkbride building was eventually demolished in the late 2000s, along with 360,000 square feet of buildings and associated pedestrian tunnels.
Wow, that's a lot of buildings.
Because remember, there was over 40 buildings on this property, and over 50,000 tons of concrete and brick were used to fill in the tunnels and basement areas.
And I wonder what they use those tunnels for.
I think because there were so many buildings, it was just easier to travel that way. Just like a lot of people don't realize how many tunnels there really are. Like even downtown Brantford, there's tunnels all over the place that are they're like connecting different parts of downtown.
I had no idea.
Like you can take a tunnel from the Armories to BCI.
Well, I mean, that kind of makes sense because it's on the same street, but holy shit, I had no idea.
There's been like petitions from students at Laurier to open up the underground tunnels again, so it's easier for them to travel and access during the winter and rain and stuff.
Yeah, that's smart. They should totally do that.
I know.
And then they need security to patrol down there.
Oh God, yeah. Downtown Brantford's wild.
That shit always happens in tunnels.
So yeah, like there's underground tunnels in a lot more places than you'd think.
Just can't see them because they're underground.
Very astute. So when they were like demolishing all these buildings, there was a lot of architectural features that were salvaged and sold because they're like, like Gothic revival and like Victorian style shit. Like there's granite, really cool like light fixtures and furniture and all of that. So they
a lot of character.
So they were like salvaging that off to other companies or individuals, whatever. And when the parts of the hospital were abandoned, there was like the Kirkbride building and the Western Infirmary and a bunch of buildings, but the Eastern Infirmary and several of the buildings had actually been kept in operation for a long time. And in the early 90s, Taunton State Hospital underwent a $19 million capital improvement to just upgrade facilities and expand beds and stuff like that. But the full closure of the institution was announced in 2012, effectively consolidating services to the new psychiatric hospital built in Worcester. So we've come full circle, because originally this lunatic asylum was built in 1853 to relieve overcrowding at Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
And now in 2012, when it's totally closed down, it's because they're just going to send patients back to the new place in Worcester.
So they move them just to move them back.
So, like, it's just crazy how it comes full circle.
It is, yeah. How everything is connected.
So, yeah, I believe now it's pretty much just all abandoned. If you go on, like, cool websites like Abandoned Places America and stuff like that, you can see a lot of really cool photos of when people would illegally sneak in there and see the Kirkbride building before it was demolished.
Yeah.
And those are really, like, very cool, very beautiful photos. But at the end of the day, it was an asylum for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so this area is pretty spooky. And people visiting the property say it's haunted. And they have been touched by invisible hands. And their legs have been grabbed, which is really creepy.
Yeah.
There's a building that was called the Goss Building. And it was one of the buildings that was still in use up until its 2012 closure. And this building is said to house a lot of spirits. But the one that is seen the most is a man in white who appears on the 3rd floor.
Okay, on the 3rd floor.
He likes that 3rd floor. And then at night, people see obes. Oh, obes?
Obes. They see obes.
They see obes. And they go, what's an obe?
And you go, it's a ball of white.
So at night, people see orbs floating around the property. And they hear banging, screams, and moans coming from the woods behind the hospital.
Oh, that's creepy.
And then allegedly parts of the hospital were used by satanic cults during the 1960s and 1970s.
Well, talking about cults.
No way.
Yeah.
Do you have something to say about cults?
I've got some things to say about cults. And actually on Mill Street in Easton, which is along the top left edge of the triangle, there is a sign marking the location of John Seeley sawmill from the 18th century. And it says that John's son, Nathan, was a wizard who employed satanic imps to run the mill through the night.
Oh my God.
Some believe that Nathan was visited by the devil who made a deal for the free labor. And Andrew Lake, the expert on Bridgewater Triangle, believes that the imps that were referred to are actually puckwudgies. Full circle again.
Oh my God. It's like Willy Wonka, but cooler.
Definitely cooler. And also in the 1980s, what was known as the Satanic Panic
Oh God.
terrorized citizens of the country and Massachusetts. But this paranoia grew to include the abduction and sexual abuse of children in America.
Yes, it did. That was basically the whole foundation of it.
Yep. And adding fuel to the fire, a woman by the name of Michelle Smith, a Canadian psychiatric patient, published a book alongside with her psychiatrist, Lawrence Pasder, whom she later married.
Oh God, this is so unethical.
Very unethical. Titled Michelle Remembers, which details her repressed memories of abuse at the hands of her mother's cult, the Church of Satan.
Oh my God. I don't even know what to think about this.
It's a cult.
I mean, it's just so unprofessional. You're like basically banging your patient, a psychiatric patient, and then you release a book with her because you're totally capitalizing off of her probably delusions.
Yeah.
And this is what contributes to the already fucked up times in the 80s, especially. Like,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah, it created
Damn.
a lot of chaos.
Yes.
People were terrified. And according to an article written by Dan Schwan in the Pacific Standard, in the book, she claims that she, quote, had been imprisoned in cages among living snakes. forced to watch as members of her mother's cult slaughtered kittens in front of her, and even endured 81 consecutive days of consistent physical abuse as the cultists engaged in a prolonged ritual to summon Satan himself. End quote.
Oh my goodness. That's wild. I don't believe it.
Well, I guess we'll find out, right?
Sorry.
No, she even went on Oprah Winfrey's show.
Oh.
And another guest, Laurel Rose Wilson, who also wrote a memoir titled Satan's Underground.
Oh, God. Did they both have the same psychiatrist?
Oh, maybe.
Gotta dig into
maybe.
that. Sister wives.
Connections everywhere, right? But this opened the floodgates for other people all over the country to share their stories of repressed memories from their childhood of satanic rituals, claims of pedophilia, and worshiping the devil.
Oh God, this is a panic, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Lawrence even held seminars, which were held nationwide for officers to help identify what to look out for in cultists.
This is so loaded. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. And many of these testimonies were placed under review, and it was determined that there was suggestive interviewing by the social workers and lack of evidence. So
I will agree with that.
Yeah, very, very discredited.
And questionable characters.
Yeah. Well, already the whole relationship is questionable.
All of this is insane. And like, it's just a panic.
Yeah.
Think about,
everyone's freaking out.
I was like, what other panics? There's like a dancing plague.
Yeah.
That was like
with the Grim Reaper
500 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But like that was a panic. You got the there's panics.
There's other ones. There's other ones.
Panic at the Disco only has one good album, but that's fine.
Well, Michelle was later, she was discredited because there was no evidence of any of the accusations made in the book. So there was no articles of a car crash that was described at that time. And during that time, the newspapers reported on every car crash. Teachers and friends could not recall Michelle missing for long periods during school. So specifically, the book mentioned that 81-day ritual, and Michelle was forced to participate in, but others confirmed that she attended school during that time.
Yeah, people would notice if you were gone for like 2.5 months.
Yeah. And so while the stories in the book don't take place in Massachusetts, they do influence the Satan craze that was happening in the area.
Oh, absolutely. In the area, just basically all around the world. It was even reaching like the UK at that point.
Yeah. And in May of 1985, there would be a news program that ran a segment on Satan worship and detailed animal mutilations that were thought to be part of malicious rituals. They also believed that rock music was used to worship the devil and believed that there were satanic messages that you could hear when you played songs backwards.
Was this like Judas Priest?
Yeah,
like,
there's
the
like a lot of
Beatles.
songs. A lot of them don't make any sense. But some of the most notable ones would be Iron Maiden's Still Life.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds like someone saying, quote, what he said to the ting with the ting bounce. Don't meddle with things you don't understand.
That's ridiculous.
End quote.
That just sounds like me when I'm reading a quote I wrote terribly.
It's terrible.
What did I write here? Mean to tings and ting to ting. Don't mess with tings.
Yeah. Just like, oh, sure, you can pick out a message from that. Or there's also Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah. So when played backwards, it sounds like, quote, oh, here's to my sweet Satan, the one whose little path would make me sad, whose power is Satan. He will give those with him 666. There was a little tool shed where he made us suffer. Sad Satan. End
It doesn't
quote.
even make sense.
No sense at all.
And how's that worshiping Satan? Satan is just a bully at that point. Why would you want to worship him?
They are
He's
grasping at
just gonna meet you in a
straws.
tool shed and beat your ass.
666.
It's
Like,
crazy. It's such grasping at straws.
yeah. And it's like believed that this cult or similar cults were practicing and sacrificing for like love triangles and
Yeah.
jealousies, but
Of course.
no.
The old
No, come on.
tale as old as time.
Yeah. And that kind of also leads us into UFO sightings.
I've been waiting.
You've
I was
been
like-
waiting
I'm
all
like,
day.
This is the Bridgewater Triangle. I know that there's a UFO sighting or two. Where the heck are they?
Who doesn't want to talk about UFOs?
And here they are. They've arrived. UFOs have entered the chat.
UFOs have entered the chat. And according to Sam Stahl, who wrote Suburban Legends, True Tales of Murder, Mayhem, and Minivans,
Oh.
mentions that on May 10th, 1760, residents would claim their first UFO sighting. Around 10 a.m., they would claim to see a sphere of fire with the light from it being so intense it cast shadows.
That's a fucking ancient sighting.
Old sighting.
Damn.
And in 1908, there was a sighting that was documented by local papers. And in 1968, sightings with 5 people claiming to see a strange ball of light floating in the wooded area of the trees near Rehoboth.
Another, like, flaming ball.
July 3rd, 1972, in South Shore, Massachusetts, something is caught flying through the air. 1973, Rehoboth. Customers sitting in Joseph's restaurant, located on Park Street, claimed to have seen a UFO, and at the exact same time, the power failed at the restaurant.
Oh my god, I would die.
And when it started working again, residents went out and saw 2 large, perfectly formed circles imprinted into the ground behind the restaurant.
What would you even do? I would be, like, amazed and also horrified.
I don't know. I'd probably just pretend it didn't happen.
I'd be like, I'm not coming back to this diner. I'm going to go to Denny's instead.
Go to Denny's, go literally anywhere else.
I'm moving out of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Although UFOs will find you no matter what.
They'll find you no matter what. We've had experiences.
Yes. Yes, we have.
But that's for another time. Okay, so
I was just, like, thinking, like, yes.
yeah,
Had a few,
that's a
then
lot
my
to
mind
go
was
into.
wandering. Okay.
1976 had 2 sightings of UFOs landing near Route 44 near Taunton.
Oh, shit. Route 44?
Route 44?
Is there a little creepy red-eyed ginger hitchhiker on this road? Yes, there is. I already told you about it.
You did tell us about it, and maybe it's bringing him home.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he's an alien. That's why he's red eyes.
Maybe there's a red-eyed alien out there. And in 1979, junction of routes 24 and 106, which is near the center of the triangle, Jerry Lopez, who was a radio newsman in Boston at WHDH, said he encountered a UFO on March 23rd. He claims this UFO craft was an inverted pentagon with bright red lights on the top, a single large white light coming from the point at the bottom with rows of lights of red and white around the edges.
I tend to believe this man because everyone always says that it's like a flying saucer.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, this was a inverted pentagram.
Yeah. This is specific. He's
Pentagon.
talking about... Yes, pentagon.
I went to the satanic part there. Inverted pentagon.
Pentagon, yes. With lights, specific red and white lights, and a large white light coming from the point at the bottom.
Oh, that's so specific.
Very specific.
I believe you, sir.
And in 1994, a law enforcement officer reported a sighting of a triangular craft floating in midair with red and white lights.
Again.
Yep, again. And in 1999, there was a UFO moving incredibly fast along with a loud noise reported near Lake Nippenneck.
Oh.
June 15th, 2003, southeastern Massachusetts. A fireball was seen zooming through the sky.
A lot of fireballs here.
A lot of fireballs.
Fireballs and floating orbs.
Yep. July 5th, 2003. Just outside of Seacon, Massachusetts, a diamond shape was seen moving through the sky.
Oh, a diamond shape.
Diamond shape this
I
time.
wonder if that could be like mixed up with a pentagon.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe someone just didn't know their shapes. Or maybe it's a different alien,
Almost a pentagram again.
right? Pentagram. November 4th, 2005. A reported sighting was found in West Bridgewater in Massachusetts. July 4th, 2007, Rehoboth, Massachusetts. There was a disc shape with revolving bands of light.
Oh.
September 18th, 2008, in Holbrook. Claims of seeing a circular craft moving through the sky. February 16th, 2009. a reported sighting in southeastern Massachusetts. In July 1st, 2010, Berkeley, a fireball was seen moving through the sky again.
Fireball.
January 10th, 2010, in Norton, a triangle shape, and an eyewitness says, quote, strange craft with amazing speed. While outside, I caught a red dot far away that appeared to be going up very fast, then changed direction, and within seconds was stopping above a neighbor's house. It was about 100 feet off the ground, and had an amber light and a red light, and it was silent as it turned almost all the way around and made a slight humming sound and started leaving. Then it was a red dot and went very fast and made a cracking sound, and I could not see it anymore. End quote. Oh my God, that punctuation was nil.
Wow, that was
one whole sentence.
That was like me when I use my microphone to send a text message. I'm like, just voice
to text. You're
yeah,
like, period. I said period.
There's no punctuation because I don't know how to do that. So it's just rambling.
Just like keep going.
Send it to my sister, and she's like, probably, what the fuck is this bitch on?
Could learn some goddamn grammar and punctuation.
She's like, I expect nothing less. It's only emojis or zero punctuation.
One or the other. December 7th, 2010, in East Bridgewater, there was a flash seen in the sky. Fireball. October 18th, 2012, in Brockton, there was a claim of seeing a triangle shape in the air. Fireball. December 21st, 2013, in Bridgewater, an egg-shaped object was seen in the sky.
One egg is 40 eggs?
One egg is 40 eggs? What?
Oh, Tyson is even sitting there. It's from I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. The sketch comedy show.
Gotcha.
One egg is 40 eggs? You're a rock star. Okay, anyway. Sorry.
So it's okay.
An egg shape.
An egg shape was seen in the sky. November 29th, 2014, in Bridgewater, a circle foreign object was seen in the sky. And July 14th, just outside of Seekonk, a circle foreign object was seen in the sky. And supposedly, 11 witnesses reported seeing this. So, fireball.
That's so many sightings.
A lot of sightings in the last few years.
And that is the reported sightings.
Yeah.
There's probably so many more people who are just like fucking high as shit on their deck one day. Like, the fuck, man? What is that? Is that a fireball or am I high?
Zoink scoop.
Zoinks. Jinkies.
Drinky scoop.
Damn, that's a lot of UFOs. I want to see a UFO in the Bridgewater Triangle. But it has to be a fireball.
Yeah, I gotta see a fireball going through the sky.
Or a pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
Inverted pentagon. And
couple lights floating around it.
Fireball. Crazy.
Yeah.
That's like so many tales from the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes.
That is an insane amount of stories. Can you imagine? I was like, I don't know if I have enough.
We were both very concerned that we did not have enough for this.
Both like, are you having a hard time? And it's like, well, I mean, I have a lot of info, but I don't know if it's going to be like enough for good storytelling. Here we go, though. We've put a whole fucking episode together. Tyson, how long is this episode?
2 hours and 8 minutes.
2 hours and 8 minutes.
Wow.
Like, that's an hour and 4 minutes each of content.
A decent episode for you guys out there.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Like, let us know what you think. We can collaborate more often.
Yeah.
Well, we should just do that anyway because that's just fun.
Yeah, screw what you all think. I don't care. Just kidding.
No, we do care. We care. Think, but yeah, that's a little taste of both of what we do.
Yeah.
Got, like the cryptids, UFOs, all that spooky stuff, and then told you some dark history, some true crime. And
some cryptids.
Man, that's the Bridgewater Triangle. It's fucking wild, and that's like definitely not all of the crazy stories. Like, there's probably so much more happening in there.
Mm-hmm.
And even like when it comes to the photo that I'm going to post on Instagram, it has just little legends, basically, like a little arrow that's pointing, and it's like, this is the location of whatever, and it's known for this.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of those are maybe a little exaggerated, but regardless, that's the shape of the triangle.
Yeah.
And we talked about everything of importance from that image, so damn, that was a loaded episode.
That was a nice long loaded episode, and we really hope that you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's been long enough, so I'll just sign off now. I mean, I'll be back next week. with a tale for you guys.
Yes.
I don't know what that tale is, but you'll find out, and you're going to have to listen to it. And then, Paige, you'll be back before we know it.
I'll be back in August,
You'll
yes.
be back at the end of August.
'Cause I accidentally skipped June. I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. It was just a loaded month, you know?
It was a busy month, but you get me twice in 2 months, so
Yeah, and July, you're on it today, and last week it was Steph. Like, it's been a fun month.
you guys are getting spoiled.
Tons of guest hosts, and I mean, next month, Paige, you're going to be on it. Maybe there's other stuff going on in the works. I don't want to talk about it right now, but like something cool could be happening.
You never know.
And yeah, I'll be back next week. Dyson will be here again with me. He'll be back like he usually is. And thanks for tuning in. Hope you like the Bridgewater Triangle. Paige, thanks for being here. Great job.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun again.
So much fun always. And you, listener, we'll catch you on the dark side.